This is not my own, but I thought it was pretty apropos. China didn't warn us about the coronavirus, but we were going to warn them about any possible pending attack. What'd you make of that?
Well, first of all, Rob, I don't think there are any objective indications that the Chinese thought we were going to attack them. And that really is the core premise of General Milley. I think it's wrong. There was no unusual movements of the Chinese military. There were no civil preparations. And most indicative of all, there was no indication in Chinese propaganda. So I think that probably General Lee, who Milley called, is probably thinking, why does Milley think that we think that he's going to attack? Which means that now the Chinese are looking for an American spy in their ranks. And so in a number of different ways, Milley has undermined the security of the United States because the Chinese now are probably more bold, more aggressive, because they believe that the U.S. is in disarray and that the Biden team is not capable of opposing them.
Gordon, quick follow-up, just about 10 seconds. I've been wondering about this. Such a simple question, but was that even remotely on the table at that time? This seemed totally random to me when I heard about this in Bob Woodward's book.
Yeah, there was no indication of an attack that the Chinese thought. And you would have seen something, Rob, if the Chinese, in fact, believed that.
General Holt, what'd you make of the theory, and this was sort of proposed yesterday by one of the members of the Armed Services Committee, that August 29th deadly drone strike, that Biden drone strike that killed 10 innocent people, including 7 kids, was carried out as a political move to prove our apparent over-the-horizon capabilities, which we clearly don't have?
Yeah, I heard that. I flagged it, and I obviously I don't want to believe that, but right. What I do think is it's a very serious allegation, and to reassure the American people, to reassure our allies and partners around the world, that line of inquiry needs to be followed through. And I understand there's investigations ongoing. That's excellent. We're going to get to know that. But there are policymakers who get involved in those decisions as well. And we've got to run those things to ground. They absolutely have to be known.
General, if I could have you listen to a soundbite, an exchange between Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana and Lloyd Austin. I wanted to play this and get your reaction. Take a quick listen.
Mr. Secretary, I understand all that. What we're trying to get to is, what did the president know? Did he forget what was told to him, or is he not being truthful?
I view that as an inappropriate question, and I won't.
Well, you may, but the American people don't.
So what the congressman was asking is, do you forget that maybe your top military leaders advised you to keep troops in Afghanistan, or at least get civilians out first? Lloyd Austin deflected, but my question is, do you think he did that deliberately so he doesn't perjure himself when it comes to the president's cognitive abilities?
Yeah, he's on eggshells. So there's, the formal relationship between the secretary and the president. They're in the chain of command together. So I'm quite sure the secretary's instinct is not to divulge the details of their conversations, which are still an open record. The congressman has it very right. These are not secretive moments. You don't get to just say, I'm not going to characterize those discussions. They're going to be a public record. So more is to come on that. And at the same time, you've got to be very measured about what you're going to say, because now you're on the hook for that. And it's very clear that the administration and the Defense Department, through these testimonies, have gone in different directions.
It's a great point. Thank you so much, General Holt. Gordon Chang, always a pleasure. Appreciate the expertise. So nice having you on. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.